The city's noise was a constant, grating hum in Elara's skull, a sound she'd traded for the soft, mournful sigh of the wind through the pines of her grandfather's hometown, Willow Creek. She'd quit her job as a high-frequency trader, a career that paid her in stacks of cash and ulcers, to reopen the Moonlight Café, a place that smelled of old coffee, cinnamon, and memories. The namesake, a large, silvery moon etched on the front window, seemed to watch over the quiet street. The grand reopening was a quiet affair. No ribbon cutting, just the creak of the old door and the hopeful jingle of the bell. The town seemed to sleepwalk through its days, but at precisely 10 a.m. they arrived. 9 of them. They moved with a strange, synchronized grace that belied their apparent retirement age. Mr. Abernathy with his silver pocket watch, Mrs. Gable with her endless knitting, old Captain Miles with a sea-worn cap. Every day they ordered the same thing, 9 black coffees, 9 slices of blackberry night pie. They sat at the large round table in the corner and spoke in hushed, intense tones for hours, their conversation a low hum of urgency. And every day, as the sun began its descent, painting the sky in bloody oranges and purples, a palpable tension would seize them. Watches were checked, glances exchanged. By the time the first star twinkled beside the pale moon, they were gone, vanished into the twilight as if they'd never been there. But they always left a tip, a ludicrous, heart-stopping tip, $100 bill under each plate, every single day. Elara's trader mind calculated the annual yield. It was obscene. Where did 9 pensioners get that kind of disposable cash? The mystery gnawed at her, a quiet counterpoint to the grief for her grandfather, whose death had been one in a string of recent, unexplained disappearances the sleepy town refused to properly acknowledge. One Tuesday, as she was refilling the syrup bottles, she heard their hushed tones spike into something sharp and fearful. "Another one last night near the old mill," Mr. Abernathy hissed, his voice like grinding stones. "That makes 3 this month. The pattern is accelerating." "We are too slow." Captain Miles slammed a hand on the table, but the sound was oddly muffled, as if the air itself absorbed the impact. "The veil thins with every soul he takes. Elias was the first, and we failed him. We cannot fail the rest." Elias, her grandfather's name. A cold shard of ice pierced Elara's heart. She froze, a bottle of vanilla syrup suspended in her hand. "The negative energy he's channeling is growing," Mrs. Gable whispered, her knitting needles clicking a frantic, anxious rhythm. "It's no longer just whispers. It's taking form. We must act before the equinox, or we lose our window for another cycle." Elara's blood ran cold. Disappearances, deaths, her grandfather. They knew. She finished her shift on autopilot, her smile a rigid mask, her hands steady through sheer force of will. She took their outrageous tips with a numb thank you. As they filed out, she didn't just watch them leave. She tracked them. She followed their faint, shimmering footprints, were they always so faintly luminous, to the town's outskirts where a vast Victorian villa stood, a structure that seemed too large for the plot of land it occupied, its windows dark and watchful under the moonlight. Slipping through an unlocked side door, she found herself in a grand circular foyer, utterly devoid of furniture. The 9 elders stood in a circle, their backs to her. The grandfather clock struck 9. What happened next wasn't chanting. It was a symphony of pure light. Their voices rose, a celestial chord that vibrated in Elara's teeth, in her bones. The air in the center of the room began to warp and shimmer. It wasn't a portal, it was the tearing of reality itself, a rend in the fabric of the world that revealed a core of blinding solar fire. A wind howled from nowhere, pulling at her clothes, and the temperature plummeted to an Arctic deep freeze. And then, as suddenly as it began, it stopped. The light dimmed to a soft, ethereal glow, and they were no longer alone. Surrounding them, translucent and shimmering, were people, dozens of them, men, women, children, their faces etched with confusion and an ancient peace. And among them, his kind eyes finding hers immediately, was her grandfather, Elias. A collective gasp came from the circle. Mrs. Gable spun around, her usually gentle face a mask of stern alarm. "Child, what have you done? You were not meant to see this." Elara could only stammer, pointing a trembling finger at her grandfather's spirit. I had to know about him." Captain Miles sighed, a sound like the ocean receding. "The cat, as they say, is out of the celestial bag. Welcome, Elara, to the Celestial Watch Committee of Willow Creek. We are caretakers. Angels, if you must put a name to it. And that," he pointed a thumb at the shimmering congregation, "is our nightly briefing. The souls rescued, and the souls yet to be saved. The man causing the disappearances," Mr. Abernathy intoned, his voice now echoing with a power that filled the room, "is Alistair Crow. A mortal who has learned to tap into a well of negative energy, a void that exists between worlds. He feeds its souls to gain power, causing the disappearances. Your grandfather discovered his ritual site. He was his first victim here." Alara's fear was burned away by a white-hot rage. "What's the plan?" The plan was forged that night, not in a dusty villa, but in the warm, familiar kitchen of the Moonlight Café. Coffee was replaced with ancient maps drawn on parchment that felt like skin. Slices of pie were pushed aside for focusing crystals that hummed with latent energy. "Crow is protected by a shield of pure negativity," Captain Miles explained, tracing a sigil over the town's map. "Our light cannot pierce it, but a mortal soul, rooted in both light and dark, life and struggle, it can act as a conduit." "You want to use me as a Trojan horse," Elara said, her voice steady. The high-stakes trader in her saw the gamble, the ultimate hedge. "We will pour our combined light into you," Mrs. Gable said, her hands glowing. "You will be a son. You will walk into his ritual at the old mill. You will get close, and you will be our dagger." The confrontation was nothing like she imagined. Alistair Crow wasn't a monster in a cloak. He was a gaunt, nervous man in a stained cardigan, chanting over a black mirror that reflected nothing but a hungry, infinite darkness. The air stank of ozone and decay. "Another soul for the feast?" he rasped, not turning around. "No," Elara said, her voice ringing with an authority that was not her own. "The delivery is for you." She raised her hands, and the Moonlight Café's kitchen erupted from within her. A light not of this world, warm and invincible, exploded outwards. It was the smell of fresh coffee, the sound of a kindly laugh, the taste of blackberry nightping, the memory of her grandfather's hug, all given form as pure, obliterating energy. Crow screamed as his protective shield shattered like black glass. The void in the mirror recoiled, not in defeat, but in recognition. It reached out, not for her, but for him. It was a debt collector, and its payment was overdue. "You promised me power," Crow shrieked. The negative energy did not speak. It simply consumed. It wrapped around him like a shroud and pulled him, screaming, into the black mirror, which then cracked and fell silent, becoming just a piece of dirty glass on the floor. A profound silence fell. Then, one by one, soft lights emerged from the mill's shadows, the trapped souls now free. The 9 elders appeared, their true forms now visible, magnificent beings of light and gentle, immense power. Together they opened a doorway not of storm and fire, but of warmth and peace. A golden road stretched into a sky filled with a dawn that never ended. Her grandfather stood at the threshold. He smiled at her, gave a grateful nod, and walked into the light. Now, the Moonlight Café thrives. It has the best coffee and pie for 100 miles. And if a new disappearance is reported in Willow Creek, the 9 regulars at the corner table will suddenly get a very specific order from the owner. A single black coffee placed at the end of the counter. And Elara will roll up her sleeves, not just as a barista, but as the 10th member of the committee, the mortal catalyst, the secret agent between the sunlight and the shadow.